Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I'm sitting down with Katie Fore, who is the founder and the owner of the Elevated Stag. Katie, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to be jumping in, talking about business, talk about entrepreneurship, all this crazy journey that many of us are on. But I appreciate you taking some time for us today. And why don't we just start with a little bit of background? Give us the 10,000-foot view of who you are, and tell us a little bit about the Elevated Stag.
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. I really appreciate you guys having me on today. So I guess the 10,000-foot view, I'm from Austin originally. So I guess kind of one of the unicorns, as people like to call us. And I went to Texas State in San Marcos, just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road from Austin. I went to school for sales and marketing. That was what my degree actually was in. And long story short, fell into a career doing men's custom clothing right out of college. I was with that firm for roughly 13 years. And through the course of that career, I found that there was a pretty big need, especially in the Austin market, focused primarily around the single men, bachelors, if you will, where they were needing a little bit of elevation in their homes and their wardrobes. So what I had focused on primarily was the clothing side and that aspect, but where they really were wanting help was in their interior design side, in combination, and even their closets. So I founded the Elevated Stag in at the end of 2019, and have been kind of running with that ever since. The business model's done well so far. It seems to be people seem to be pretty receptive of that concept when I tell them what I do. I haven't found anybody else that really does it. So I think I found a little bit of a niche. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I do work with couples as well. So it's not just bachelors. That's kind of my target market. But I do find that I work with a lot of couples, both marriage, presents a lot of challenges. And one of those happens to be with the interior design space, commingling assets and whatnot. So I can kind of come in, be a third party to help maneuver those challenges and hurdles, I guess, if you will.
That is so cool. Yeah, definitely a uniqueness in the marketplace that I can't say I've come across. Many others who do what you do. No, that's really cool. Love the background. Maybe let's start. Just I always like to kind of set the stage. So we'll start with kind of some general questions here. But generally speaking, when you look at kind of your business, now let me preface this question first. We have an opportunity to talk with so many different sizes, styles, maturity levels of business, that sort of thing, from those that are just in the startup phase to those that have been in business for 10, 15, 20 years, kind of tech startups to mom and pop shops that have been around forever. So I preface that to kind of set the stage for how we go through the rest of the conversation. So generally speaking, what is the, we'll say, ownership structure look like for your business? Now, what I mean by that is it just you in the business? Do you have, a business partner that you get to work with? Have you had to take on outside investors? More kind of that general context of, what is that, I want to say ownership structure, that maybe isn't the right term, but what does that look like for you in your business?
Yeah, it is. It's just me. And I do have an assistant. So it's myself, and I have a full-time employee. I I don't know that that's going to change. I don't know that I need that to change, at least not anytime in the near future. I'm self-funded, so I don't have any investors, anybody else that has, I guess, partial ownership. So yeah, it's just me.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate that. So that lends me very naturally to the next question of role within the business. So obviously you've grown a bit since 2019, just over the years, that sort of thing. You have a full-time employee now. How many different hats do you get to wear in the business today?
I get to wear a lot of hats, and I would say overall, I'm very much a project manager. That's kind of my specialty, is coming in and making sure that everything works efficiently and smoothly. And I think if you ask the people who have worked with me, that I tend to be a very structured and a very organized individual. So when I send things to my assistant, for example, it's a lot of bullet point lists, a lot of tasks to be checked off. It's not just kind of like a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, that I've met tend to kind of just throw things out there and hope they get done. I don't work very well in that environment. So entrepreneurship can be really challenging for me from that perspective. But I have a really incredible person working with me now. And it's taken me, of course, as I'm sure with most entrepreneurs, a little bit of time to get to the right individuals to kind of surround myself. I have an incredible CPA. I have a really amazing bookkeeper that I bring in. They're not my employees, but they do an incredible job helping me to stay on top of the things that I need to not be focused on. So I can go in and one, be client facing. That's also one of my strengths, is making sure that I'm taking care of my clients. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to serve my clients to the best of my ability and hopefully improve their lives. And then also to make sure that everything else is running the way that it should be. Eventually, I would like to be able to step back from that, of course, and not wear so many hats. But for right now, yeah, it's definitely a juggling act for sure.
Well, that was gonna be kind of my next question is, what if there was one hat that you could keep forever because you absolutely love it, what would it be? And on the flip side, what's like the next one as soon as you can hand it to somebody else, that's the next one to go?
Well, the one thing that I would always like to continue doing is being client facing. I love getting to meet with my clients on an individual basis. That's one of the aspects I think that I've missed the most from being with my previous role. I had a non-compete. So I had to wait that out for a little bit
Mm.
in one aspect of my business. So I focused on primarily working in the interior design side, and that didn't allow me to be as client focused and as client centered as I had once been. So now getting full focus back into the client facing side of my business has been really enjoyable. And I think that's the one thing I would definitely keep. The one I would hand off immediately, if possible, would be dealing with anything construction and contractor related. If I didn't have to talk to another contractor, I think, a day in my life, then I would absolutely be ecstatic. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's ever going to happen. I think I will always have to have some kind of a hand on that part of the business. But yeah, it's not the most glamorous side, for sure.
I love that. Well, just the fact that you've got the clarity or the sight on kind of what makes sense, what doesn't, what you love, what you don't maybe enjoy quite as much, can play a pretty big role. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what makes your business so special. You talked a little bit about who you serve, that sort of thing, but maybe let's take that a step further. I always like to just ask the question of, like, if I'm in the audience and I'm listening to this later on, how do I know that I would be a really good fit, or I might know somebody who's a really good fit to give y'all a call and maybe work with some of your services?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, I mean, the majority of my clientele are business owners, bankers, lawyers, lobbyists, anybody that really wears some form or fashion of dress clothing. Obviously, COVID has kind of thrown all of that for a loop in some ways better, because I think people are having to wear certain things, even maybe just on their top half, that fit well, are comfortable, that they can, kind of be multi-purpose, if you will. But I think that having um the ability to have stretch clothes, right? There's a lot of the stretchy material that's been incorporated in the dress clothing that helps people to travel. Now that people are getting back into the work environments, they're having to go back into the office, and they are either having to get on a plane, or they're having to like get back into some kind of transportation, that if they have to get right off a plane and go to a meeting, they want to have that flexibility. And so the fabrics that I carry now incorporate a lot more of those stretch. So it's not just suits. Like, people think of something like, when I work in a custom clothing business, they immediately think super like formal dress clothing. But I do shorts. I do, kind of like the Lululemon ABC pants, like the really stretchy, comfortable things that you can just like do lunges in your house and be comfortable in, that aren't going to wrinkle. They're not going to have to be pressed constantly. They're not high maintenance. So all of those types of things. I work with clients that are fluctuating in weight a lot. So if you are somebody that bulks up in the wintertime, or you lean down in the summer, and you don't want to have necessarily two different types of wardrobes, I can accommodate that, because I have master tailors that I work with here locally. I can get turnaround times a lot quicker. I have your measurements on file. So it's really just a turnkey service. It's meant to kind of come into somebody's life and make things easier for them. So they can offload that part of their life. They don't have to think about it. I manage that for them. My team manages that for them. And then they can get on with the rest of their day and do whatever they need to do. So it's really for everybody. And the price point, again, is also something for everybody. I think if you're going to go into Nordstrom and buy a suit, you can afford what I do.
Very cool. And so when somebody comes and takes that next step, says, like, "Hey, I'm interested. I want to see what this could look like." And what does that initial process look like? What does your conversation look like with somebody who is maybe new to this entire world and may need some guidance?
So first of all, I want to make this a really fun process because I think with guys, especially, they don't like to venture out. They don't like things that are uncomfortable. They don't want to make decisions that they might make the wrong decision. So my goal is ultimately to make this as easy and fun of a process as possible. So I usually start off with, maybe a 5 minute quick introductory call just to ask them some questions, just kind of similar to what you did with me before we started this one, just to gauge like where they're at, what their expectations are, and make sure that we're on the same page with everything. Because, there are some people where it's just, this isn't quite the right fit. And then there's other guys where I'm like, okay, you really need my help. And so I can kind of help to navigate that and direct them into the situation that's going to make the most sense for them. And then if it makes sense, then we'll schedule another meeting. And this one typically will be in person. I do fittings via Zoom as well. That's something COVID has introduced into this business, which I never thought would be possible. So that's been kind of interesting. But typically I would be in front of them so I can measure them at that meeting. We can look at their wardrobe, see what they have, what they don't have, where their gaps in their wardrobe are. And I can make recommendations based on who they're seeing, where they're going, what they're doing. And then we can kind of figure out. So typically in that meeting, we'll get them started with a few pieces. I don't like to do huge orders on my first time because I want to make sure we build their pattern in, and it makes me be able to get them, all the little tweaks and every little tiny thing when we get their first fitting done, and then we can build their pattern in. So going forward, I can text them fabric pictures and say, hey, I think that these 3 sport coats, these 3 pairs of jeans, and these 6 shirts would look great for this fall, integrated into things that we've already done. And they're like, yeah, that looks great. Let's do it. So it makes it really, really easy. And if they want to see me again in person, great. If they don't after that first one, unless they're gaining or losing like 20 to 30 pounds a season, then we don't have to do that whole every single time we have to get together.
Oh, that's so cool. That definitely makes it easy, and I think that's really cool to learn a little bit more about. I mean, this is a great segue into marketing. I love asking questions around marketing. It's one of those areas that most business owners who go into business, who love what they do, don't always have the skill set around how to be really great marketers as well. So I always like to ask some questions around it, like find out what's working for other business owners out there, that sort of thing, or maybe some lessons learned along the way. What has been your philosophy to marketing? How do you get the word out about the amazing things that you do?
Yeah. So I would say that marketing is probably one of my strengths. I did go to college for that, but also I think it's been something I didn't realize until later in life that it's kind of a natural, it's a knack that I think that maybe I have. And I don't like to shove what I do down people's throats. I'm not one of those people that's going to blow your phone up constantly. I'm hoping that I'm busy enough that I don't need to be doing that. And if clients need me, they know where to find me. I make that really easy. I live in a high rise downtown. I'm constantly wearing, I mean, this might be the first day in a really long time that I have not dressed in a logoed shirt of some kind that has my logo on it. So I'm always branded. I'm running around my building. People know in my building who I am, what my business is about. I have a Ford Transit Connect van that I drive around town. So it's completely wrapped with my logo. It has the stag and wagon on the back of it. So people will send me pictures and text me and say, hey, I saw you driving around later. It's like just constant feedback from clients about stuff like that. So I try to brand it as much as possible. I'm not huge on social media. I mean, I probably have like 1,000 followers on my Instagram page. I put stuff out there as much as I can, but it's a full-time job, as you probably know, running one Instagram page, let alone multiple. So I think I try as much as I can to get my word out, my name and my brand out there. I try to work in the charity segment. Like I did a lot of that when I worked for the company I worked for before, and they never really they weren't big on that. So I did it myself. And I just felt like that was something to give back to the community. I wanted to be able to do those types of things. But then as I've now been able to do it on a bigger scale, I think that's something that in the next phase of my business, when I actually am like, you know, growing a bit more, that I'll be able to do that as well. And there's lots, obviously, Austin's really big on philanthropy. There's a lot of different things I can get involved with. Haven't fully explored those. I know right now there's not really like a Dress for Success type of organization in Austin. We're really lacking in some of those. So that's one of the things that I would really like to look at. I know there's one for women, but since my clothing, I do closet cleanouts constantly, where I take loads of clients' clothing. And right now, the only places I have to really donate to, I have a couple of churches, and then, Salvation Army, Goodwill, the usual suspects, but I don't have a specific organization that I feel like, kids or people that are looking to get jobs, that this could really benefit them.
Hmm.
So I would like to start kind of exploring those opportunities as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Um, so let's take a step back for a moment, and you'd said something like 13 years in a career, choosing in 2019 to then come and found this business and start to grow your own thing. I imagine that there likely have been some lessons learned along the way when it comes to this amazing thing called business ownership. Are there any lessons that stand out in your mind, or an obstacle that you had to overcome that's kind of helped you become the business owner that you are today?
Yes, there are probably a million that I don't even know that I could think of off the top of my head, but a couple that really jump out is to get the right people in your wheelhouse as quickly as possible.
Mm,
And to take the time. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are busy and they don't want to spend a lot of time looking for good people, and actually take the time once they do find those people to integrate them into the business, to make them feel cared for, to make sure that they are trained properly. They just kind of throw them in there and hope they stick. And I've been guilty of the same. And I know the importance of it just from my previous role, because after 13 years, I had done a lot of hiring, not just for roles that work directly with me, but also roles throughout the company that I would place people all in offices all over the US. I definitely think that taking that extra time to really know if this person is the right fit for your business, and making that decision. And then once you do make that decision, to then follow it up with great care, because that's where I think a lot of people lack. So that would be probably the biggest thing that I've learned. And also just making sure that you have, like, I think getting a bookkeeper for me was one of the best things I've ever done for my business early on. I've had two since I started, and the one I'm working with right now, they've both been great, but she and I have regular one-on-ones. We have, she tells me when I'm missing something, or she's like, "Hey, I noticed this." She really cares about my business, and in a way that I didn't think that somebody could in a position like that. She's not my employee, but she really wants to see me succeed. And so I think having those people in my court really gives me, it empowers me to want to move forward faster, to scale, and to start moving things in a bigger way.
I love that. The just the concept of having the right people around you, and it's not always just the people that you would directly employ. I think, for those that are watching, I think that's a very, important point, highlighting the bookkeeper relationship, that sort of thing. And I know we've been through a couple bookkeepers in the past, some better than others, and but having that right person, having the right team around you really can make a massive difference, when you take the time to do that. So I absolutely love that. But as you look towards maybe the next 3 to 5 years, what do you see? What's exciting to you as you look at kind of the growth of the business over the next 3 to 5 years? How does your role change as you continue to grow?
Yeah, it's great that you're asking that, because I'm in the process right now of really defining what that's going to look like. I'm a big goal setter and always have been. That's another thing that I think that comes naturally to me that I thought came naturally to everybody, but have realized later in life that that's not necessarily the case. And so I really like to set goals. I like even mini goals, daily goals, weekly goals. And because entrepreneurship is so fluid, I think it makes it really challenging, especially in the early years, to be able to set these goals. You don't have the same KPIs, you don't have the metrics that a lot of more established businesses do. So when I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at last month. I'm like, well, last month looked way different than the month before. And then that one looked like way different than the month before. And none of them look anything like any of the other ones. So having to try to like get to the root of, okay, where are we really headed? What's that going to look like? What do we want to continue doing? Do I want to continue banging my head against the wall doing this thing that's not as profitable? Or do I want to shift our focus into things that are the more profitable, even if it's not something that I enjoy as much? And how do I look to, maybe offload some of those things I don't love doing to other people, even though they're profitable, right? If I want to do something, and part of the reason of starting your own business is you get to do what you want to do, right? I don't want to cut away completely the things that I enjoy doing. But if you are in a business and it's not profitable, then you're in a hobby, right? That's like the whole
Mhm.
point of starting a business, is to be profitable. So I have to balance that with also knowing that I'm running a business that I want people to enjoy working at. And the relationships that I'm building along the way. I mean, all of those, just looking 5 years ahead, I want to have people to like look back that who worked with me and said like she was one of the best bosses. My clients that continue to work with me that I've had since I started with my last company, a lot of them have come and followed me into my business, which I've been really, really excited, and humbled, to be honest, that they would stay with me, and that I can continue to build on that clientele. There's obviously lots of people moving to Austin. So my business being 100% referral based, um, you know, that hopefully will continue. So in 5 years, I would love to have, you know, 10 times as many clients. I don't know what that number looks like yet, because I'm still working on those things. But yeah, it's definitely, I want growth. I want to be successful in what that looks like. I haven't quite defined it, but I know that I don't want to be working 7 days a week and 12 to 15-hour days forever. I would like to be able to take some of my time back, and I feel like I'm finally able to start doing that.
Very cool. I love the some of the comments you made around goal setting as well. When you look at kind of your philosophy around goal setting, are you someone that definitely has to write down like every goal from the big goals down to the little mini goals? Are some of them written down? Like do you write them down? That's probably the question I'm getting at to start with here.
Um, I definitely know the importance of writing them down. I've been a person typically that has written them down. I would say I'm in that stage right now where I'm starting to write them down in this business. In my previous life, in my previous role, I had a vision board, and I would make a new one
Mm.
every year or even every season, depending on the goals that I was setting. Because we had a lot of quotas that you had to reach in sales. I was in an outside sales position. So, and we were 100% commission. So I didn't have a salary to fall back on. I literally I ate what I killed every single month. I started at zero. So I had to break those things down into, little microscopic pieces, because, whole month and big goals, can be very overwhelming. And so if I don't have those, if I have a really bad day and I totally feel like my entire goal plan is like derailed, if I have it in bite-sized manageable pieces, and it makes it a little less scary and a little bit more manageable.
I love that. I mean, that's a huge thing for those that maybe it's not natural to be setting goals all the time. Like, take that exercise, being able to break it down into small things, and being able to kind of tackle them on a day to day or week to week basis rather than monthly, annually, or anything else like that plays a massive role in being able to move things forward.
And I think the additional side of this, which I'm sure that you've told people in your clientele, is that you have to attach a why to it.
Mm.
Because if you have goals, some of us are just machines, and we will just, plow through them because we have to like have that adrenaline rush of checking a box off. But if you don't, or days where you just aren't feeling motivated, if you don't have that why attached to what you're doing, and the reason for it, whatever it is, that can make it a lot more challenging.
100% agree with that. Well, we've certainly covered a ton of ground so far in the conversation. I do want to be respectful of time. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, I've got, 4 rapid fire questions that I love to kind of just pull out some additional nuggets of information. So best of our ability, we'll go top ahead answers. But as you look at your journey so far, both with this business and kind of just your overall journey, what would you say is kind of your key to success?
Consistency. That would be
Hmm,
the first thing that comes to my head.
I like that. You could only give one piece of advice to other business owners. What piece of advice would you give them?
Give yourself some grace.
Grace, I love that. What's one book that either you're currently reading or have read most recently that you'd recommend to the audience?
Ooh, I think one that I really love and I tend to like kind of go back to and reread it every so often is Take the Stairs, by Rory Vaden. There's another one called Procrastinate on Purpose, and they're kind of like a tandem books. So I really like both of them, but I think those two, just because they're simple and it's just you kind of have to remind yourself sometimes just do the things that you don't want to do.
Mm, I love that. I don't think I've read that either of those two, so they just made my list. My list keeps growing. Uh, so last rapid fire question. This one's just kind of fun. If you could choose only one area in the business, you only get to choose one area, where you can take a little bit of magic dust and you can sprinkle it all over that one area, and you wake up tomorrow morning and it's 10 times better than it is today. Where would you choose to put that magic dust?
It's definitely on the wardrobe side of my business.
Hmm, I love that. So before we get to the final question that I always like to wrap all these conversations up on, for those that are watching, that are curious, that want to learn more, that want to connect with you and continue to follow the things that you're doing, that sort of thing, where can we advise the audience to go? What's the best places to reach out and find out more information?
Yeah, so my Instagram is just at the elevated stag, and my website is theelevatedstag.com. So those are the two easiest places. My cell phone and email are both on there, and I'm one of those people that my phone is kind of an extension of my hand. I would love that not to be the case at some point in the future, but going on almost 20 years of that, I don't know that that's going to actually change anytime soon. So I'm very easily reachable, and I respond really quickly to people. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody. If you have questions, I'm happy to hop on a phone call. And I love to collaborate. I really do love collaborating, especially with local businesses. If there's anything I can do, if I can donate a suit to, you know, silent auction, things like that. I'd love to get involved in that way as well.
Amazing. I will make sure to put all of that in the video description below. So please make sure as soon as we wrap up here, you go click on the links, check it all out, check out the website, follow them up on Instagram. Maybe send a DM on Instagram. Say, hey, saw you up on the business spotlight. Amazing conversation. Want to learn more, etc. So Katie, as we finish out the conversation, I always like to end on one specific question, and that is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
Ooh, that's a really tricky one. Um, man, I think inspiring. I think living in Austin, living downtown. I moved downtown probably about 9 years ago, from just south of the river, which is still kind of downtown, but I really was looking to kind of inject my life with a little bit more of the downtown. Like it was kind of becoming alive, right? The last 10 to 15 years in Austin, a lot of young professionals have moved here, a lot of tech. And I just wanted to kind of surround myself with that. And I think that that single decision that I made has had such a huge, huge impact on where I am today. And that am even like that I even felt confident enough to be able to jump into entrepreneurship. It's always been something that I think has been in my blood, but being around people that do it every day, people that were always working from home, even before the pandemic, like seeing how people were able to do that and knowing that I am a consistent person, that I do the things that I say I'm going to do, that I get up and I, make things happen, that it's a lot easier for people like us, I think, to do entrepreneurship than what most people will give themselves credit for. And it's very challenging, yes, but it's been a lot easier. I'm more fulfilled. I'm happier than I think I've ever been in any career. And I just think that in itself, like the Austin environment and enriching that, and empowering people has been extremely inspiring for me.
Absolutely love that. Katie, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing this bit of the story and some of the journey that you've been on to build a business. I'm excited to see how the next 3 to 5 years continue to come to fruition for you with your consistency and goal setting and everything else. But thank you so much for being here and sharing with us today.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Tanner.